Jeff. I was really looking forward to this a lot because when James sent me the information on your book, like I said, at first I was like, that's so specific talking to people who are eventually going to become lawyers. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, there is value in what you have for that specific niche, but I always think there's something that's practical application that we could walk away with that's going to help anybody. So we're going to go there, but what
Well,
I
yeah,
want.
right out of the gate, we should just bring that up that this applies to 80% of the people in the industry. So that way we can set the stage for wherever you
Yeah.
want to go. So I
There
will
we
follow you.
go. All right, that sounds good. Well, you have a very interesting and unique background, so I want you to talk a little bit about that so that people know who they're listening to. So give an overview of like the main hats you've worn in your life, and then we'll pick up and springboard from there, Jeff.
Sounds great. Thanks, Sue. When I started my career, I was an accounting major in undergrad and passed the CPA, went right to law school because I didn't want to become an auditor when I grew up. And so the practice of law it was intriguing to me, but I was always deep down a business person and an entrepreneur. And I saw a lot of integration between law and business and accounting and I love marketing. And so that's the path I went on. And I practiced law for about 7 years total, just under 7 years. And I got an opportunity to join two clients. So one was on the board of a distributor. The other, I went on to become, after about a year, the CEO of a multi-site high-end office furniture manufacturer. And it's interesting how your life experiences kind of intertwine as you go along, and what you draw upon as you go through life and in your career. And so for me, it was a natural progression. One might think, well, gosh, from law to manufacturing, that's a big leap, and I don't see the connect. There's a
Yeah.
disconnect there.
Yeah,
Yet,
you answered my question
oh,
because I was gonna ask you because has
oh,
the intersection between the 2 when they seem, like they're totally completely different industries, so how did they come together?
Well, for me, I think the key, whether it's in law or it's in business, you have to have an insatiable curiosity. So in law, you have a Socratic method. You're always asking questions to learn. Well, in business, it's the same thing. It may not be as direct, but you have to ask a lot of questions to learn, and not only for yourself, but when you ask questions to the team, you bring out ideas, new ideas, fresh ideas, different perspectives, and you get the comments like, "Wow, I never looked at it that way," or "I never thought of it that way," and so for me, maybe the one challenge, but it wasn't a big one, is like learning the process of manufacturing. When I went into furniture manufacturing, yet I'm a distributor of photography supplies, and then later in my career, I got into building materials and flooring manufacturing. And there's a lot of commonality in all manufacturing, and there's obviously transferable skills. But if you have that mindset that you learn in law school or in business school about the curiosity of that business, and you keep asking questions, you'll pick up on the things you might think on the surface seem to be an obstacle or a challenge when it really isn't. That isn't the challenge of transitioning from law to manufacturing. I think the biggest challenge was the educational background of the people around you. In law, well, we're all lawyers. We all went to law school. We're all at the same level. We all have a JD. When you get into business, you're dealing with people with GEDs, high school diplomas, college degrees, a whole variety of people. And then you have different perspectives too. You have people that are in the manufacturing mindset. You have accounting people, you have sales people, and then you have the executive suites. And so the communication styles vary much more in business than they do in law because you're not just speaking to one group, other attorneys. Now, granted, you need the support staff to assist you, and obviously that we always have the client interaction. But
Mhm.
that's probably the biggest challenge, is that ability to communicate and connect with different perspectives and mindsets within the organization. That's more challenging, I felt, than learning how to make the widget versus how to
Yeah.
provide the service.
How did you overcome those challenges then with the communication?
I really worked on it. So I put myself, and this was a good lesson to learn, that I put myself in the shoes of my audience. So if I was talking to people in the factory, well, what does a factory worker care about? Because if they don't care about it, they're not going to listen to you. You start talking about marketing and sales, or a new product, they don't care. But how is that new product or those additional sales going to impact their daily lives? Are they going to get more overtime? Are they going to have a chance to advance within the organization, within the factory, and have to learn different skills? More cross training might be required. more employees might come on board. They're going to care about that perspective, and the company's growing and thriving. But you have to I don't want to say spin, but to a certain degree, spin the story so it resonates with them. When you're talking to the accounting department, is it increase their margins? How's, again, they're going to be not so much focused on the top line, but rather, or the impact on the factory, but more on the marginal stuff. Like, are the margins going to be better? Are the yields going to be better? Are the efficiencies going to increase? And how they measure. So I think by putting yourself in the shoes of the audience, and you should do that with everything you do in business or in your career, that if you put yourself in the shoes of the audience, you'll do a better job communicating because you'll connect quicker and the message will resonate better.
That also, as you're talking about putting yourself in the shoes of the audience, is basically just speaking to them in their language in a way that they're going to understand and get your point across. That's a big skill because you have to be able to not only talk to them, like you have to understand them as well. So it's not just business, not just the career. I was thinking that's in life too, in our
Yeah,
own personal relationships and how we relate to people, that how much better off a lot of times would be if we would just slow down and think of the other person's perspective before we answer or before we give something back to them. I love that. I've asked that question a lot, what people have done in their certain situations. That's the first time I've received a response like that, to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So,
yeah.
I
Well,
appreciate.
one thing you make a great point, Sue, and I think that's one of my frustrations I've seen in business, where too many executives, too many accountants, too many bankers, they think you can run your company or run an organization or make a decision based on a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
Drives me nuts because a spreadsheet is just a reflection of decisions and behavior.
Yeah.
And they get into all these analysis when they do. Oh well, they'll play games with formulas. Well, if we just might change this,
Yeah.
change that, oh, the current ratio will be better, the yield will be better, the margin will be better. But it takes your ability to connect with people to do that. And if you don't understand where they're coming from, how can you motivate, manage, influence, or inspire them to do something?
Mm.
And it's not just an academic exercise. And to your point, the only way you're going to understand where they're coming from is you need to literally get out of your office and talk to people, walk through the factory, walk through the office, have real conversations, not necessarily business conversations as a boss or a leader, but rather as a co-employee. We're on the same team. We're
Mhm.
coworkers. We have
Yeah.
different skill sets. We contribute in different ways, but understand. But when you talk to people and also get to know them a little bit more as a person, that helps you connect the dots. And I think that's how you can be more successful. To your point, to understand where they're coming from and what's their concerns, what are their hot buttons, what are their worries, what motivates them, what excites them,
Mhm.
and that'll make you a better communicator with people and to get things done more effectively.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think, you know what, it would make you a better employer as well, because when an employee feels seen, heard, and loved, I mean loved like they're appreciated, so seen, heard, and appreciated for
Yeah.
who they are, not just for what they do. It's not just about the business, it's not just about the numbers, it's about treating the employees like people and understanding that they bring to work their life experiences, they bring to work the things that might be going on at home. And, you might have a factory worker whose wife just decided to leave him that morning, and he's got to come to work and show up. And there's that going on behind the scenes that you have to, as a employer, as the one in charge, you have to understand that those people don't just arrive every morning as a blank slate. So
Yeah.
yeah, and how much in, I think today too, I mean, there's that silent, not that this is kind of going in a direction I didn't think it was going to go in, but you know how they have the silent, what is it, the silent quitting or the silent resignation,
Yes.
where people are just silently resigning. And you know what? Let me ask you, why do you think that's happening now? What do you think some of the underlying causes are of the silent resignation?
I think the biggest thing, whether it's a silent resignation or a stagnant sales or things just aren't quite right. And this has been going on for 100 years. It just percolates and evolves into different forms. But it comes
Mm,
down to culture. There's dysfunction in the culture, and there's a disconnect between the leaders and the team members. And I think a lot of, I mean, a hyper, I can't give a number, I've never done a study, but I think there's a very high percentage of business owners, CEOs, that just don't understand culture. They don't appreciate the magnitude of it. And they think if we get more orders in, it'll self-correct. Attitudes
Mhm.
will get better when we have more business, and we'll become more efficient. We'll become a more team-like. We'll pull together. Yet if you don't fix the underlying, it's like an undercurrent of
Mhm.
there's that dysfunction. And if you can't fix the culture, nothing else will work. It's kind of like the analogy to, a bad diet. A great exercise regimen cannot overcome a bad diet. Well,
Mm.
it's the same thing in business. A great strategy, a new product, pick whatever you want, will not overcome a dysfunctional culture, period.
Mm.
End of story. You might get a bump. I've seen companies, they bring in sales leaders, they bring in marketing experts,
Mhm.
they bring in Six Sigma people, and it doesn't work. It's not sustainable because the system is broken because the people, they're doing this, and they don't have that engagement where people, like you mentioned, they don't feel appreciated, they don't feel like they're contributing, they don't have that emotional ownership in the organization, either with the initiative of it or the purpose. Is there a purpose? Like, why are we here? What are we doing? Are we just here to collect a paycheck, punch the time clock from 8 to 5, and go home and put money in our piggy bank and not care about each other? They're not having fun. They're just passing time. And at some point, they wake up and go, enough. I'm done with this. I'm going to go do something else, or a better opportunity comes up. But
Mhm.
I think in the end, if when companies do figure out how to connect, and I have found the starting point, the best way to start to fix a culture is to start solving problems. And you got to listen to people and just ask. You go through the factory, go through the office, and ask them, what do you love about it here? What would you fix if you could be the boss of everyone today? You're the king of the world today. What would you change? Good or bad, like to fix a problem or to do something cool, or great. And listen to that, because eventually, you know, they're going to start coming with ideas. But the biggest thing of all, what I have found that engages employees and it changes the whole culture, step by step, employee by employee, is when you do identify the problems you want to solve or the challenges that have to be overcome. You bring a lot of voices to the table, and you don't care about titles because everyone has a different viewpoint. So, like we talked about before, whether they're in this department, that department, but even within those departments, where are they in the hierarchy? It doesn't matter. They're looking at it from a different lens, and they're going to look at things in a different manner that gets others to think in like, wow, I never thought of it that way, and better ideas will percolate. But in the end, the best thing you can do to engage someone, I've learned, compliments are great, saying, "Hey, Sue, great job."
Yeah.
That only goes so far. And yes, you need to do that. I don't want to say you shouldn't do that. But the number one thing you could do, I believe, and I've experienced is, Sue, what do you think we should do?
Mm.
Because I've just given validation to your opinion. I've just said to you implicitly, I value what you have to say. Now, some people don't like that because, oh my gosh, you're putting all the pressure on me. I don't want that responsibility. But most people want to speak up. And And if you make it for a safe environment, that's the other thing. You have to have a safe environment where people are allowed to speak up. They're encouraged to speak up. And if they say something like, this place is screwed up, you don't punish them for calling out that the
Mhm.
emperor is not wearing any clothes. Okay. Because a lot of companies will do that. And if you do that, no one's going to talk. And then you're
Right.
done. You can't fix that, when people won't talk. But if you create a safe environment for people to speak up, you're giving them, you're validating and respecting their opinion. They're going to contribute more, and then by the group, the aggregation of ideas and the aggregation of conversations, we're going to fix the challenges. We're going to come together collaboratively, and the culture gets fixed. And then all your marketing ideas and your sales ideas and your Six Sigma stuff, it's, the funny thing is most of that will come from within. You
Mhm.
won't need much outside stuff if you have that culture fixed. But it'll work, whether it comes from the outside or inside. It will work because the culture is working and everything is flowing. And this isn't going on anymore. So
Yeah.
that's
I would
long
imagine.
question, but that's been
No,
my.
that's all right. I love it because packed within that are so many pieces of practical application and small steps that if somebody who's a business owner listening can go, "Oh, wow, I've got a lot of actionable steps like within that." So, no, I love it. No, I love the conversation and people, if they want to come to work, then they're going to want to work. If they're
Yeah.
coming to a place they don't want to be, then it's just how fast can I watch my clock go and what can I do to pass my time or what's the bare minimum? So finding culture is so important. One thing you did mention was that when people bring their ideas and come to the table to problem solve, regardless of where they are in the organization, in your experience, where have you seen it work really well and where hasn't it worked well?
Here's what I've done in that experience. So when I was CEO of US Rubber, we had about two-thirds of our workforce were ex-felons. So that's a whole other, we could have a whole conversation about second chance hiring. We create a bounce back program.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
kudos. That I have a lot of respect for people who do that.
So what I used to tell them all is, as we were putting team, and we exponentially grew the company in a very compressed time frame. And these are people that didn't have a background in business and lacked life skills, a whole bunch of challenges just in, starting out. I used to say this: we need each other. I would literally look at them and say, you need me and I need you. I said, you can do things I can't do. I can't go out in the factory and run that machine. I can't, do this in the accounting department. I can't do whatever the topic was. But I also made it clear you can't do what I do. So together we can make something special. So it wasn't a matter of I'm here, you're there. It was rather that we're all contributing, not on a hierarchically level, but more of a we're contributing in manners that the others can't do, and we're going to respect what we bring to the table. And then you can't have the smartest guy in the room syndrome. Now, is my
Mhm,
job as the CEO or the leader, if I'm in those meetings, I have to connect the dots. That's what I bring to the table. I can ask the questions and to get them to start thinking. Like I'm saying, we're here over here at this point A, and we want to get over to point G. How are we going to get there? Because this is where I want to take the company, but I don't know how we're going to do it. And I start listening to what they have to say, and I'll challenge them. And then I might bring up an idea. What do you think about this? And I would make it clear this is about the safe environment. I would say, if you don't like what my idea is, that's okay. Just never make it personal with anybody, whether it's me. Like, don't be calling. I mean, I wasn't so worried about myself, but each other. Like,
mhm,
don't be calling each other idiot. You can just say that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard, and that's okay. But tell me why. And
right,
you're allowed to say that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard if you can explain why, and then what's your alternative.
mhm,
It's easy to criticize and throw rocks at each other, but you got to bring something to the table. And what we found was it became fun because people would challenge me, and I remember so many meetings I'd go into and say, "I have an idea." I can't tell you how many times people go, "Oh no," that was the first time I heard. Wow, but the point was I allowed them to challenge me and I would push them back. And I didn't have all the answers. I never thought I did. But leaders that think like that because they have a title,
mhm,
go get a new job. Don't work for that guy or gal. That's a bad idea. But if I have my idea here and somebody else another idea over there, somewhere in between is the better idea.
mhm,
But if we challenge and have that conversation, and again, not attacking the messenger, but and not getting attached to your idea. Don't take it personal. And that's hard for people to get used to. But don't
mhm,
take it personal when you think, well, we should do these three things, and they start criticizing all three. It's okay because we're just starting a conversation. We're getting somewhere, and we're going to come up with the best three things we should do, whatever it may be. But that's what I have found by creating that environment that nobody knows everything. And the other thing, to your point earlier, and even now, when the boss, whoever the boss is, starts showing concern or interest in something, the workforce will show interest. So if
mhm,
you don't show that you care, they don't care. It's that simple. It's human nature because they're not going to, it's not the guy on the factory floor or the gal in the accounting department or the gal in the marketing department or the guy in, whatever department. It's not their job to point out all the things that aren't quite right. Now, sometimes they will, but not everything. But they also can't always prioritize or understand the magnitude of the issues, how important that issue is. Like they
mhm,
might think, oh, we're wasting, $10 a day by not doing this. Okay. But they don't know, and this is where the conversations come in, and you have that more collaborative environment, an open environment for conversation. Yeah, we're losing $10 a day doing that, but if we did something else, we'd lose $100 a day. So we're kind of picking the better of two evils, but someday we have to figure out that $10 problem. But you need to
Mhm.
explain to them, why are we blowing $10 a day? They might think you're an idiot running this company, but they don't
Mhm.
understand what's going on behind the scenes. And we're just picking the better of two evils for now, temporarily. But that's where, again, the top down stuff doesn't work, because you can't be everywhere and you put a chokehold on the whole organization. Because if everything has to go through one person at the top, it doesn't function well. But if you start going out sideways and collaborating, then things percolate. Then more, you get 10 things done instead of one thing done. And again, better communication, better understanding, more contribution, and then better resolution to the and better creation of solutions in
Mm.
that process.
I love how you explain the structure that the person, your CEO, like they're the one kind of in charge, but then they have these people underneath them that also understand they have like getting the right person in the right seat. And so they're the ones that they're also running the organization as well. That everything, it's a system. Like a really well run business is really a system of everybody interacting the way they should and kind
Mhm.
of running very nicely. You have such a vast background of a lot of different experiences and information. And you went from being a lawyer to an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs, sometimes it can be a lonely road if you're going down that road. Talk about the roles of mentors and coaches and what they've played in your life as you've gone through the different seasons that you've been through.
Yeah, I think mentorship is, I mean, obvious, and it's really caught on more today than it did, when I was in my 20s, just starting out in my career. It's really the key to success, because success leaves clues. We've heard that before. I think it
Mhm.
was Jim Rome that came up with that saying, and mimicking is so important. So, Sue, if you were my mentor and I see what you do and the path of your career and how well you've done, well, if I mimic what you do, I'm probably going to get the same results. Not guaranteed, but that there's an approach that works, at least in a certain fact pattern or a certain environment. So, mentorship can accelerate, the process. You don't have to wait till you're in your 40s. You can learn something in your 20s, and now you're ahead of the prior generation, and you're accelerating not only your professional development, which from a selfish standpoint, that's great. Okay, my professional development is on a faster track, but your contribution will be better to the company or the firm,
Mhm.
whatever you're doing for a living. And that should never be underestimated on the impact that it can have. Also, it can reduce the pain. So if you're my mentor and you say, Jeff, if you do that and you hit your head on the wall, it's going to hurt. So either I can listen to you or I could bang my head on the wall and come back to you and go, you were right. So, but some people are hard headed, no pun intended, but they have to bang their head on the wall. And after that, they'll quit, they'll listen to their mentor a lot more and closely. And, but I also think what happens in mentorship is when it's internal, when it's within the organization, that too adds to a better culture, because there's a
Mhm.
bond being created. Now I'm closer to Sue. She's my mentor. She's taking care of me. She's looking out for me. She's educating me. And mentors can learn from their mentees. It works both ways. Not as much a two-way street, but it can be a two-way street. And again, the world is always, we live in a dynamic world. We always have. The world has always been dynamic since the beginning of time, and it always will be. And so things do change. So maybe when you were in your 20s versus when, if I'm 20 some years old, the world's changed a little bit. So that you need to listen as a mentor. Well, what's a little different today? Like, why isn't this working? It worked for
Yeah.
me, or it worked better for me. And then, that's where that again, that open conversation, and it can lead more. But I think mentorship is a very, very important thing. And it helps, you mentioned the loneliness. I don't know if the loneliness is, I mean, that term is used often,
Yeah, you
whether,
think of solopreneurs. You
yeah,
think of people as just going off, "Okay, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur now, leaving my W-2, and here I am now sitting on an island." I think that's the first thought that comes to mind, but that's not sometimes that's the reality, but it doesn't have to be. I think the point is that does not have to be the reality of
no, because like
entrepreneurship.
even in my job, I had, 100 some employees. We were all in it together. Now the responsibility was on my shoulders, but believe me,
Right.
it wore on me, because if I have a bad day at the office or I make a bad decision, it's not just impacting me; it's
Mm.
affecting everybody. Now that's a tough, that's the one thing about CEO that makes it's very fulfilling when not so much the ego trip. Oh, look at me, look what I did, put a star in the refrigerator. I get a
Yeah.
brownie point. But you also know when you make the right decisions, the positive impact you have on many, many people in the organization. But you have to take that responsibility that you have to own it when things don't go wrong. You can't point fingers. But I think the hardest part about whether you're an entrepreneur, however you define entrepreneur, whether you're a solopreneur or you're the person in the hot seat, it's about being resourceful. And I think it becomes less lonely when you engage others. So if you are a solopreneur, bring outside voices in. Again,
Mhm.
that mentorship, talk to people. Have they been there before? What would they do in this situation? What have they done in this? Have they been in this situation? What have they done in this situation? And listen to what were the outcomes. Listen to other people, and that's how you do it. Now, it's even within a company. Now, for a CEO, you can't go to somebody else and say, "What should I do?" That doesn't make any sense. That's a tail wagging the dog. But you can say, "What should we do?" This is what
Mhm.
I would like to do as the leader and in the vision for the company where we need to go. But let's all contribute to the solution. Because again, I don't have all the answers. I may have some of
Right.
them,
And you're
but
not the one executing them either.
right.
Do you now, like, as the CEO, why you would go to your COO, why would you go to your ops person, your finance person, and your marketing people, like, all into there and ask for their input as well? Like, here's your vision so they can give you more practical a more practical idea about how to implement your vision. That would be I would think that would be the purpose of the CEO going and working together with everybody else. Yes.
Well, I learned a great lesson. This was
Okay.
like, thank goodness I learned it right at the beginning when I was a tailor at the beginning of my manufacturing career.
Okay.
I don't remember what the topic was, but I distinctly remember sitting in the conference room and literally going around the table saying, "Okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do this, you're going to do that," all the way around the table.
Uh-huh.
You're the new boss. Okay, you're the new sheriff in town, and everybody did exactly what I asked them to do. But unfortunately, life doesn't always work the way you plan it. And some things occurred that I didn't anticipate or anyone could anticipate, and I didn't address them at that meeting. Well, everyone in that meeting did exactly what they were asked to do. The boss told me to do this. I did what I was told, and they don't do a thing more beyond what they're told to do. That's why that top down thing doesn't work. That's a bad
Mm.
cultural move because something happened, it fell between the cracks, and nobody picked up the ball. So here's what I learned from that one experience, and I never did that again. Going around the room saying,
Yeah,
here's what
yeah.
you do." So what we did was, we're here, we want to get there. How are we going to do it? All around the table, everybody had their ideas, and then they cross police each other, and they own it.
Yeah.
They come up and say, "I'm going to contribute by doing this. This is what
Yes.
I'm going to do." And the next person, says, "This is what they're good at. This is what they're going to do." And then, and then what's interesting was when something did fall between the cracks, which it always does, they cross police, whether or they help each other out to pick it up because nobody wants to come back to the meeting and didn't do what they promised to do
Yeah.
because they emotionally own it now. They don't want to be that guy or that gal that didn't live up because now their colleagues, their coworkers, they all look at you. It's not the boss beating on you because now they're not the victim. They're the bad guy. They didn't hold up their end of the bargain. So if I'm the boss and I say you do this and they didn't do it, well they could play the victim role pretty quickly. And that doesn't help anybody out. But if they don't keep their word and let everybody else down, that's a different dynamic.
Mhm.
And that way they're either going to step up their game and come through for everybody, or they're going to get pushed out the door on their own because the rest of the group's like, we don't want that person on our team because we can't count on them. So
Mm.
that was my big lesson I learned early on in my career, and I will never, ever, ever make that mistake of telling people what to do.
Self-policing accountability. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
I love
that's
it. I think that's
that's the
cool.
way to go. Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Actually, the reason I asked the question is because I was thinking about systems and processes. So what you're talking about is, you're CEO of the organization, you have people underneath you, they're all coming together and working together. But then on the other side of that, you could talk about the integration of like something like EOS. Or something from eMyth where you're implementing those systems and processes where you have people in place. Like the finance guy knows he's going to be doing the finance stuff and the ops gal or guy knows that they are responsible for this part of what they have to do. But as you were talking, it sounded like everybody in the room they could own what they needed to own, or is that too simplistic, or is it
No, no,
the,
that is beautiful because That's another thing that I learned going from law, you know, and I bring this up in the book because again, 80% of what's in my book you can apply to any industry, any career. I don't care what you do for a living. 80% of it, because like you asked me about my mentors, well, most of my original mentors were in law. But what I learned from them, I carried into manufacturing and
Mm,
services, and so it's we don't all live in silos. But to your point, I think it's so important because if you're going to connect with people, you have to boil things down to a common denominator. Not that you're talking down to someone, but you have to speak in a language because it also reflects, do you really understand it yourself? That comment about, people say, oh, you have to speak like so a fifth grader would understand or a 5-year-old would understand. And I don't remember what it was, five something. And there's a lot of validity to that
mhm,
because if you can get to that common denominator, like what we're really doing without using fancy jargon and fancy terms, I'm sorry. I mean, the world has not changed that much in 100 years. Yes, technology has sped things up and it's brought data, more visibility to certain, operations or spend or, it's just, but the underlying events haven't changed and they never will change. Okay. So to your point, or the point you were making is, it is that simple. You do have to get those contributions from the people they know more about it than you do because they live it 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day.
mhm.
That's what they do all day. And who are you because you have a title or you sit in the ivory tower and say, this is what we're going to do? When we built a new factory at Taylor, we involved everybody, not every line worker, but we had the foreman, and then the foreman spoke to the line workers. Like when we're
Right.
laying out the factory, what are we going to do? Where are we going to put everything from a staging standpoint, storage standpoint, operational standpoint? And we got the input. So we built the right size factory. It wasn't too big. It was Goldilocks. It wasn't too big. It wasn't too small. Because what'll happen if you don't get that contribution and you go ahead and do it, and then it doesn't come out the way it should come out.
Yeah.
That's when the finger pointing starts.
Yeah, or
We
somebody be
all
complaining, "Why did you put that thing there when it would have made more sense to put it over there?"
Well, if you
Or
would have
something
asked
like
me,
that.
I would have told you. You get
Yeah.
that? I would have told you.
I would've told you what to do if you asked my
Exactly.
input.
And now they're telling you everyone's a Monday morning quarterback when it
Yeah,
goes wrong.
right.
So that's how
Yeah,
you
but you
avoid that.
learn your lessons that way, though, To
Yeah.
circle back around to your mentors, do you have a favorite mentor or a favorite mentor story?
I've had a couple great ones where I've been the mentor and what my mentee said to me when I wasn't doing a good enough job as a mentor because it was in a position, Melissa, who we worked together for, I don't know, 7 years in consulting, and she's super smart. And I remember asking her to get certain things done. And what I failed to do was to give her more specifics about the timeline in which it was to be done and to and not only the timeline, but the order in which I wanted them done,
Mm,
what was the most important. So I left it for her to decide. Of course, when her prioritization didn't match mine, I was kind of upset. Like, why didn't what are you doing, messing around with that? This is what's more important. She's like, you didn't tell me. You didn't because you gotta make it clear on the this and this. And there's an example where the mentor learned from the mentee, and that you just take things for granted, like they should know, but they aren't at the same point you are in your career. And
mhm,
so I think one of the best bits of advice I've ever been given was from my father. And at the time, I was in my 30s, and my father was very successful in business. And he would be very self-deprecating and say, "Well, I just surrounded myself with great people," But yet, it was much. Yes, he did do that, but it was much more than that. But the one statement he made to me, in fact, I put it the opening quote in my book: "Everything in life is easy until people get involved."
I
And at
love
the
it.
time, I didn't really appreciate it until you go through it, in life. Yeah, because you could this goes back to the spreadsheet people. Yeah, we could sit there and take out a piece of paper and map out everything, and everything's going to be perfect, and everything. We're going to do this, this, and this. And we're all going to make $100 and laugh our way to the bank, and everyone's going to get along, and everyone's going to agree. That's not how life works, and it's interesting with when the people impact comes into the equation. That's where you have to learn to be agile and flexible and realize how do we balance all these different interests and and approaches and styles, and it really becomes a Rubik's cube that maybe not always be solvable, and you may not make everybody happy. And I think the best advice I was also given was when I was at Terra. We had three factories and three unions. And I was once asked by a newspaper was interviewing us for something, and he asked me, "What do you think about working with unions?" And I said, "I love it." And I think his jaw hit the floor. A CEO saying he loves working with unions. And I did. I was being very sincere, and to this day I am,
Mhm.
because I had a very good relationship with the unions. Now, we didn't sit around the campfire holding hands singing Kumbaya, but we were honest with each other. And being honest with each other built trust. We
Mhm.
did get into arguments, we did get into debates, but you know what? It was like having a second layer of management built in. I had an ally in the union versus an adversary in the union because we had honesty and trust as the foundation. And that's what I was told very early on. Never, ever, ever lie to the union. And if you
Mhm.
look at a lot of issues that happen when you see in the news, when you see about unions not getting along with management, more times than not, it's on the management because they broke that bond of trust first. And then the people,
Mhm.
unions are made of people. And once you lie to the other side, well, guess what? They're going to retaliate. And then you're not going to bring out the best in them. You're going to bring out the worst in them. And then
Yeah.
it just keeps escalating or going down into that ditch. So that'd probably be the other thing is about honesty and whether, again, having those uncomfortable conversations, but at least be honest about it. And that builds a better bond, whether it's an employee, coworker, colleague, outside, organization. That's the other thing.
Mhm. In your opinion, what do you think are the top 3 qualities that make an outstanding CEO?
Empathy is number one. Like you mentioned earlier, you have to continually put yourself in the shoes of your audience. Again, something may have happened in their personal life that's impacting their professional life. So the number one thing is the empathy. So you'll be
Mhm.
empathetic when you discover, certain things that are going on, and be empathetic. Now, and there is a distinction between being sympathetic and empathetic, in getting into that distinction. But you need to have some sympathy, but also empathy to understand where they're coming from and help go through whatever their challenge is, in balancing that challenge with, hey, we got a company to run, and we have to get the job done. Second thing is the ability to influence people. And influence is so important because that gets back to your ability to make things happen. If you can't get others to do things, well, it's just that you could be working with a company with 100 employees, 1,000 employees, and
Mm.
you've turned into a solopreneur because you're the only one making. If you can't get influence others to make things happen within the organization, and it's only you, well, that company is going to grind to a halt. You're going to put a chokehold on it, and you don't want to have that. And you have to trust people to do it. That gets into micromanaging. If you're a micromanager, you're screaming, "I don't trust you," to your employees. You're double
Mm.
checking everything. You're leaning over there,
Mhm.
breathing down their neck, leaning over their shoulder. Who wants to work for that guy or gal? Nobody. And they don't. And when an employee feels like you don't trust them, they're not going to take any chances. They're going to play defense so they don't get in trouble. They're not going to contribute. So again, if you can find ways to influence people through a safe environment that can contribute, not be ridiculed for criticizing, being and then asking what their opinions are to build build people up versus tearing them down. That's how you build people up. And I think the third thing, which connects, it's the underlying current for everything, is your ability to communicate. um, Communication is so important because it's a two-way street. It's not just about speaking, it's about listening. So again, that's how you become more empathetic, by listening. Speaking is that internal marketing. you know it's hard for, in a factory or a distribution center, or any organization for that matter, or a law firm. You got to pass along the big picture. Why are we doing this? What's going on? Like if you're making a sample, product for somebody, and the factory, here we go again, we're giving stuff away for free. Well, that free widget may get us an order for 1,000 widgets, or 100,000 widgets, or $100,000 order. But it's good, like again, just passing through the factory, passing through the warehouse, or passing through, in the office and meetings. Just let them know what's the big picture. How is this going to lead to a better relationship or cost savings, whatever it may be. And by sharing that information, that internal marketing, that's one way your communication will help influence people. And then again, when you communicate better, don't forget the listening part, because that helps you become more empathetic to the scenarios. And also, you may have things set up where people are not. You want to create not only a safe environment, but an environment for them to succeed. And if you don't listen to what's going on in the environment, there could be dysfunction in the process, and we're making someone's job harder than it needs to be. So you need to
Mhm.
listen to that and get that feedback. Now, don't get me wrong; everyone's going to tell you to make their job the easiest thing in the world, and they're gonna tilt it more to theirs. And I would do the same thing if the boss
Yeah,
came.
yeah. That's human nature, isn't it, though?
Human
Just
nature.
to just to make the thing easier, but,
Yeah,
to understand life's not easy. If you embrace the fact that life is not easy and to bring on those challenges and that those challenges actually make you stronger and they make you a better person, then when you reframe the hard stuff in that like that way, then it's like, okay, bring it on. If you tell yourself it's going to be hard and then it's hard, then you're like, oh, I'm not surprised that it was hard.
right.
rather,
Exactly.
rather
No
than
surprise.
trying to make it easy. So the CEO, the three biggest qualities you said, empathy is one, influence is the second, communication is the third. In the first one, empathy, you mentioned sympathy as well. Can you talk about the difference between the two? And you said empathy is more, you need more of that than sympathy. I think sometimes when we hear those words, people kind of use them interchangeably. So,
You know,
how do you define? I know they're not the same. So, how do you define the two and what's the relationship between them and how you use it?
we help make it better? What can we do as an organization to support you through this, whatever you're going through? That's empathy. Sympathy is just showing that you feel for them, but you stop there. You don't go, in my definition, you don't go beyond that. Empathy is you've either walked in their shoes or you're willing to walk in their shoes and you want to get them out of whatever situation they're in as best you can. And they could be facing a medical situation, and they have the weight of the world on them. They may not live. They're worried about, or it may be, whatever it may be. They may not have the support, the family support, and whether they get it from the outside, you can find outside resources or internal resources. But that's the difference for me between sympathy and empathy.
Okay. In the course of our conversation, am hearing this underlying theme that caring for the people that work for you is paramount. Have you ever heard of a CHO,
No,
a
I
s-
haven't. No.
chief happiness officer?
Oh, that's
So,
cool. No, I've
so
never
there's
heard.
so
No.
I was curious because I went to a women's entrepreneur retreat a couple of months ago, and one of the gals that was there was talking about whatever organization she was in, they had a person that was their specific role was to go around and ensure the well-being of all the employees in the company. And
Yeah.
like pretty much take what you're talking about. So she said this person in the organization went around, and I think they called her the CHO, the chief happy officer, that would just go around.
Well, yeah, and I think the chief happiness officer is a great way to get feedback, so you go in the
Sure.
right direction. And again, it's another set of ears. Because the other thing is, nobody tells the CEO everything.
Right,
Nobody
right,
does that,
right.
and nobody
CEO.
tells any boss everything. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you can create that trust factor. The other thing I did, you remind me, I did in two different roles. I used to have on Fridays, and eventually we got so busy we had to stop. But we were doing this every Friday. Then we started doing it every other Friday. Happy News. We'd get the whole office, we get the factory leaders, we all come together, and we'd go around the table. And it was a chance to brag and to create awareness.
Mm,
So you'd go around and what were you most proud of this week? What'd you do this week, Sue? What are you most proud of? And it could be something is an outcome you achieved or the team achieved or something you witnessed. And it's a chance to brag, but also you're kind of sharing with everyone in the room, this is what I had to overcome to do this. And it
mhm,
started to give everyone a better idea of, wow, Sue's job's not as easy as I thought it was. Or, wow, that was really hard. That's how that happened. She was the one behind that. And that helped a bond. And sometimes it can be personal too. It did not have to be just
mhm.
work. My kid did this. My spouse did that. And Happy News really went a long ways. And we gave everybody 2 minutes. That's it. You got 2 minutes to tell your story. So it didn't go. And you could
Yeah.
many things you could jam in because we had like 15 people in the room. Like we want to
Yeah,
be
I
there.
was gonna say, yeah, but 2 minutes and above, like, I'm thinking like 50 people in the room, that's a long
Yeah,
meeting.
we had about 15 to 20 people in the room. Now, it was under an
Yeah,
hour, but it was over a half hour. But everyone got 2 minutes, and somebody had the
yeah,
timer, so they would like
yeah,
call you out.
yeah,
You're done.
you're
Next,
done.
let's go.
Next person.
Yeah,
That's amazing. I mean, just from company culture alone, I mean, just
yeah.
how
Happy news. Happy news is a good
yeah.
thing. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, eventually we're going to talk about your book. So let's get to your book. Your book is called From Associate to Ambassador: The Distinctive Skills Every Law Firm Associate Must Master to Enjoy an Exceptional Career. There's so many takeaways in the course of our conversation. But I do want to ask you, because it's such a specific title and a specific audience, what prompted you to write your book?
I didn't even set out to write a book. I wanted to become a corner office partner. So as you probably know, law firms are comprised of associates and partners.
Mhm.
And, for those who go into private practice, most attorneys just, okay, they go through like the motions, or what everybody else has done. Well, I do my 7, 8 years, I get elected to the partnership, I become a partner. But there's a lot of attorneys who want to be more than that. And again, talk about the evolution and the dynamic aspects of the world we're in. You know, Law school teaches you to become a subject matter expert. When you get into the law firm, you become a subject matter expert. The problem with that is, if that's all you are, is a subject matter expert, well, the world keeps changing. You might
Mm,
go out of style, or that aspect of the firm may not be as important. And your relevancy, your career could be, in your position in the firm, and your career could be disrupted, and your position, you could lose your job because all you know is, I'm a labor attorney, in this one area, and I have an expertise in that, but you don't contribute anything more to the firm other than that expertise. And then also from a fulfillment standpoint, how fulfilled are you just knowing all you contributed, or all you do is, I just know everything there is to know about this aspect of this area of law. And so what the book gets into is these timeless foundational values and skills, and they're people skills primarily. Your ability to manage, motivate, influence, and inspire colleagues, your other fellow attorneys, your support staff, and your clients. That connection, that bond, built on trust, built on communication, built on people skills, again, directly or indirectly, whether it's marketing, general skills, lawyer skills, that's what it comes down to, that connection to people. And then you become an ambassador to the firm. So when you're out bringing clients in, you're representing the whole firm, not just you. It's not about you,
mm.
the solopreneur, the solo lawyer. At Baker Hassler, when I was there, we were the 16th largest law firm in the country. That was an easy sell for me. It wasn't just about me, Jeff, the attorney, this young attorney. I had these amazing attorneys behind me, from coast to coast. There's no problem our firm has not, addressed or solved, and that brings a lot of, credibility to my messaging. And so the reason the book came about was, I wanted to become a corner office partner, more of an ego trip. So Cleveland was the primary office for the firm, and we had about 200 attorneys in Cleveland, 7 floors. So the question I kept wondering was, like, on those 7 floors, you got 4 people that were corner office people. Well, what makes those partners more special than the other partners? Because they yielded more influence within the firm. More,
Mm.
they had more of a, it's an ego trip, but more of a pedigree, a higher level. If you're a corner office partner, it wasn't anything, beyond the status of, you had the best office on the floor, the best view. We're on floors, I think we were on floors 26 through 33. You had the best views, north corner, northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. And so the question was, what made them different? That's how this book started. I wasn't writing a book. I was just observing what made them different. It wasn't where they went to law school. It wasn't where their practice of law was. It was their ability to connect with people. Because they mastered that, they became the rainmaker. They were more than just a subject matter expert. They knew who to go to within the firm. They could make things happen quicker.
Mm.
And that standing in the community, again, it's people connections outside of the practice of law, that they were doing. And pulling that all together, that's what set them apart. That's what gave them greater success, more fulfillment, more than just a subject matter expert. And they had a better handle on their career, in the sense of, they weren't as vulnerable as just the other partners that only, all they did was they lived in a little bubble, and they didn't get outside their office. So I created all those observations. And then one day I decided, I got quite a bit here. I'll write a book. And I did. 1993, I wrote it. And if you can imagine writing something in the mail, I was only 30 years old at this point. You had to wait 3 weeks to get an answer from the publishers. And a few of them wanted to. I remember W.C. Wiley and Sons wanted to publish it, but I didn't like the format they wanted to do. So I threw the manuscript in a book sat in storage for 30 years. And last summer, talking to somebody else who mentioned they were writing a book, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I wrote a book too. I couldn't remember the title of it, and I ended up doing a rewrite. And I wanted to make this book, in which it is, an interactive experience for the reader. So again, 80% of this book, I don't care what you do for a living, you can apply this to your job. It's not law specific, but it's about, I'll make a point, and I have supporting quotes that will reinforce the importance of the point, and I will make statements about that, and then ask you to take certain steps to make the, to embed this into your daily activities. Or there might be steps of, or there might be reflection. When did you do this last time? What was the outcome? Did you get the same results? And then, but the steps may be like, you need to do these, these things on this topic, whatever this point may be, to help embed that into your daily activity or routine, because you have to make this a part of your DNA, your
Hmm.
professional DNA, because that way it'll stick, and then it'll start happening over and over and over, that repeatable process.
Sounds like small steps lead to big wins in that case.
There you go. That's right. Exactly. You are correct. I didn't put that in the book, but if I did, I have to pay you a royalty for that one. It's so true.
So
Absolutely.
some of the timeless foundational skills that you mentioned were the ability to connect with people, which has been a common thread that we've been talking about, and motivate them, inspiring and influencing people. Which one do you think is the most important and why?
It goes back to the influence. If you can influence others, that then great things, magic happens then, because they come together in collaboration, and that's how you get systemic growth, or exponential growth. It isn't just incremental. Oh, we grew 5% this year, 10%, but also it's a fulfillment side. It's fun. It's fun to win. How are you
Yeah.
define win? Or it's fun to progress. We're getting better. Look what we did this year compared to look where we are today versus last year, or the year before that, or the year before that. I think also becoming a well-rounded person is so important. I think one of the things I probably bring up in a couple different areas in the book, and one of the quotes was from Woody Allen, and it was to the point of being a well-rounded individual. And the quote went along the lines of, "There's worse things in life. There's worse things than death in life. Have you ever spent an evening with an insurance salesman? And if all you can ever talk about is law, who wants to sit with you for an evening at a baseball game or a social outing, whatever it may be?"
Yeah.
And there's so many different things. Like if you're in the service industry, you're projecting an image, okay? Whether it's the clothes you wear, if you're dressed up formally, and are your clothes pressed, are you buying the best clothes you can afford? Is your office neat and tidy? The image you're projecting, because if you don't project the right image, you're putting yourself behind the eight ball before you even start. Because people are going to
Mhm.
look at you from your appearance and think, well, that person's smart, is not smart, is, whatever it may be. They're going to have a preconceived notion. Well, you want
Right.
to create a great preconceived notion. I remember David Ogilvy, the great marketing person from New York, it said, "Nobody buys from clowns." Well, there's truth to that. So your
Yeah,
appearance is
right.
really important. And so I think that there's a lot of aspects and a lot of parts of your career. So it's hard to just say there's one thing, but influencing
Right.
other people is very important. But there's so many components, and that's where in the book I literally like layer this out piece by piece. How did it make a difference? And like networking, just a quick thought on that. And I wasn't given the formal education. It took me a long time to learn this about networking. Two things, and that is, it should be called relationship building, because you don't want to make this transactional. You
Mm.
can't just go in there, I want to get something out of it. I want to get a deal out of it. I want to get an engagement out of it. That's not going to work. You're a taker. You're not going to attract much energy or much
Mhm.
revenue from networking, which leads to the second point. So it should be about your mindset going into networking. Just call this relationship building. How can I build relationships? Well, the best way to build relationships, and it took me years to learn this, and I wish somebody would have talk about mentorship. I wish somebody would have told me this when I was in my 20s. So that's why I'm trying to tell everybody in their 20s or 30s now. You need to go in there to ask this one simple question when you're networking: what can I do to help you?
Right.
Start with that. Don't make it about you, make it about them. When you help other people, most, not all, but most will come around to reciprocate and help you. And that's the best way you can network, because that's the best way to build relationships. It's not about you, it's about helping others, being a resource, adding value to other people's lives or their careers, and contributing in that way. they're going to come back because then they talk about getting the connection. They're going to like you, respect you more, and you're not a
Mhm.
taker. And they're gonna most cases are going to reciprocate and in ways you never dreamed. And and they're going to, and again, you go back to titles. We talked about titles. Sometimes people open doors that you might think, well, they're not. You might go too high on the food chain. You think, oh, I only could talk to the C-suite people. Sometimes the mid-management people are better because they're
Mhm.
closer to the where the rubber meets the road, and they can make things happen because they know the person that you really need to get to make through your networking efforts. But I think the biggest thing is make it about them and think of networking as a relationship building. That's what it's really about. You go in with that mindset, you're going to go much, much farther in your career than you ever would just thinking, I'm networking because I want to get clients. I'm going to go meet people, go find clients. That's not
Yeah.
what networking is about.
Yeah, yeah, you make a great point. I love it because when you go in there with that idea to take, it sounds like it just feels
Sure.
icky,
Yeah.
it
Nobody
just
wants to be with that guy or gal. Yeah.
yeah, right, right. I had a mentor tell me the one time that his philosophy was he looks to leave people in a better place than what he found them or than how he met them. And I love that. I've carried that with me since he told me
That's
that.
good.
And I just carry that with me. I always look to leave people in a better place than when I met them. And that follows what you were talking about giving, looking to just see what you can do to give and not take anything. My current mentor that I have, he told me he's like go into a situation and with the thought of you don't need anybody in the room. You're just looking to see how you can
Right.
give to them. How many times in mentorship have you come across where, one mentor tells you one thing and it didn't quite hit you the right way, and then somebody will tell you pretty much the same thing but different wording later on, and then you finally get it? Has that happened
Yeah.
to you?
Well, that happens. Yeah, that happens also outside of mentorship in business. You have a meeting,
Yeah,
and you're going around a table, and somebody says they have this idea, and they say it in their own words. We should do this, this, and this, and then they go halfway around the table, and somebody says, and nobody reacts that much to the first person.
right.
Somebody says it in a different manner, and everyone gets excited about the second way, and the first person goes, "Hey, that's exactly what
Hey,
I
I just said
said."
that.
What are you people doing? But one of the underlying themes of my book, and I have it on my website, is learn what law schools don't teach. Learn what business schools don't teach. You don't learn most of this in business school
Yeah,
or law school. They don't teach you these people skills. They don't teach you the networking. And yet they teach you subject matter expertise. I'm going to be an accounting major, a marketing expertise. I got an MBA. I have a law degree. Great. Yes, you do need that. But if you really want to go places, you need all these things you and I have been talking about for the
yeah.
past hour, and it's again, it goes back to people skills, networking, and again, if you don't master that, the rest only can take you so far and it won't take you that far. So
Yeah, that makes sense. What's one thing that you thought would be hard about learning the processes of businesses, but it really wasn't? And then flip it. What did you think would be easy and wound up being more challenging?
I think I touched on it before. I think the business part when I went into manufacturing is to learn how do we make the widget. That wasn't that hard. And a lot of people think like you were bringing up at the beginning, oh, you went from law to manufacturing. You take raw materials that come in the door over here and they come out a finished good over there. Now, I'm not trying to downplay the complexity, but if you watch the flow, you'll figure it out. And then things that don't make sense to you, that's the other thing that's great about a fresh perspective, is when you go in there with a fresh perspective and you have no preconceived notions. You're a sponge, you're a whiteboard, just trying to learn this. It doesn't make sense. You're like, why are we doing that here? Why don't we do it over there? Or why does it take this and that? Again, you start asking questions, and maybe 8 out of the 10 questions are good. You have some two stupid questions or three stupid questions, and that's okay. But I think figuring out the process was easy for me. I never found that. Some people think it's very difficult. I never found that to be difficult at all. The thing that has been and always will be is what we talked about is people. Figuring out people. We will never figure out people totally. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times in my career I have said to myself or to said to my coworkers, I have never experienced that before. I couldn't make this up if I tried. I mean, wait till you hear this. Here's what happened today. And that's kind of the fun thing about life. But yes, that has happened many a time. And it usually goes back to people. You are not going to believe what so and so did here, or a customer did, or a supplier did. You can't make this stuff up. That's
It sounds like that's more fun than hard.
Well, you either laugh or cry, one of the two.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. In all of my podcasts, I love to ask the same 3 questions as we kinda come around and close up. The first one is, other than your book that you wrote, share a book or resource that's had a significant impact on you.
There's 2 books, well, one I haven't finished reading, I'm reading it now, How to Be the Adult in a Relationship,
Mm,
and that it's all about self-awareness, which again is part of my book. I'm not this part going outside the book, but
mhm.
we talked about, putting the empathy, putting yourself in the shoes of the audience, whoever you're speaking to. You need to have your own self-awareness. How are you coming across? How are you reacting to the situation? So this book that I've been reading, and I just started that one has been very interesting. Another book that I read, and I bought it because of my book. It's called $100 Million Leads: How to Get Strangers to buy your stuff. And it's been really interesting. I read that book in its entirety, and
I
it goes
love
through,
Alex Hormozy. That's
yeah,
he
you've
has
read, yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah, no, I have it sitting on my shelf. I have 100 million dollar leads and $100 million, oh my gosh.
I did.
Yes, the other one, there's another one, 100 million.
Yeah,
I'm drawing a blank on it, but there's 2 of them, and he's coming out with his 3rd one too. But $100 million offers, that's it.
offers, yes.
Yep, offers,
But
yeah,
the leads was great because it gave me some ideas. I have a very, as you mentioned, a very narrow. Again, the book can be bought by anybody, but as far as marketing, I'm going to gear towards my target audience: law
right.
students, summer interns, and junior associates. Well, how do you reach them? Inbound and outbound marketing efforts, and I'm using AI in both cases. But from that book, $100 Million Leads was the outbound marketing. He just got me to think differently. And again, I
Yeah,
go,
he
wow,
does.
it's self-evident after the fact, but before the fact, it's like, wow, I never thought about it that way. And that book was great. So
Yeah.
those 2 books, again, How to Be the Adult in a Relationship and $100 Million Leads, those are the 2 books that have helped me a lot recently.
Oh, awesome. What is one question or topic that you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
Okay. I think we just hit on it at the very end about the mentorship and the networking, because you didn't ask me about networking and I brought that up. It's the
Right.
networking thing because I can't emphasize enough relationship building. How can I help you? People need to know that. And I wasn't taught that. I remember my first networking event. I was in Cleveland. We went to the university club. It was a monthly luncheon for the Ohio Venture Association, all these venture capitalists. I had no, like, what the hell's a venture capitalist? I didn't know. 25 years old. I just came out of law school. And I was literally told, go over to that table, tell them what you do, and tell them about the firm, blah, 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 and figure out learn what they do. And I wish I would have had training on how to network. So, we could spend a whole hour on networking and what are but if you just learn the one basic thing, how can I help you? Start with that and introduce people to expand other people's networks. And have meaningful conversations about the desired outcome ultimately is I'd like to have more business, but you're only going to get that through expanding your own network and expanding other people's network. So if you take that outcome out, leave that out, and just make your mindset going into how can I help other people. That, to me, if you would have asked me about that, that's the number one thing that helps make you build relationships and help others, and then you get the boomerang, reciprocity impact of it. So that's what I
Mhm.
would say there.
I can't wait to put this podcast out. I think it's gonna be so helpful to so many people. You don't even have to be a
Yeah.
lawyer to you don't even have to be in the business space to walk away with practical applications. So here's goes right into my last question. As we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's gonna help them change their tomorrow?
Involving others in solving problems. Don't take the world on by yourself. We talked about collaboration and culture. The first step is involving other people in the process. And by engaging people to solve the problem, what do you think we should do, Sue? By doing that little tiny step, what are your thoughts? That puts you on the right road. You may not even be thinking about culture when you're trying to solve a problem, but that byproduct is more important. Improving the culture is more important than solving the problem at hand. And I think that small step is just engaging others, and it always doesn't have to be with you. If you can start getting these teams just working together and engaging others, you get the compounding effect of that. That would be the one thing I would recommend doing. I don't care what you do for it. You could be in a nonprofit, you could be in a business, you could be in a, whether it's a manufacturer, whether it's a service provider, you could be in the practice of law, architecture, I don't care. Involve people solving problems. That's the small step every time. It'll help put you on the right path to improving the culture, strengthening the culture, and obviously fixing the problem.
Oh, I like that one a lot. Perfect. Jeff, how can people find you?
Go to my website for the book. The book, that's the best place to go. So from associate to ambassador.com. So www.fromassociatetoambassador.com. Tell you about the book, tell me about me, a little bit about my background, a couple paragraphs on that, but how to buy the book, and also to sign up for the newsletter. Every other week you get a page out of the book and gives you a flavor for what it is. I have a blog writing on, this won't matter if you're a law student, you're going to care about the blog, or a junior associate. But if you're not that, you skip the blog page. But the rest of it, I think, is finding the book there. And again, a little bit about me is on the website. That's the best place to go.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Well, Jeff, thank you for the gift of your time. This has been a fun, wonderful, and engaging conversation. I'm so glad that we got connected and that you decided to come on the podcast.
Well, Sue, I appreciate the opportunity. These are some great conversations. I love the fact that we spend a lot of time on topics that can apply to a huge audience, and from nonprofit to for-profit, manufacturing, service, distribution, law, and it's lessons we all can learn. And the more conversations that you and I have with other people like this, we all get a little bit better. We all learn something.
Hmm.
So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, check out my website, personalcoachfinder.com, and find someone who can help. Remember, life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by choice. Take small steps today and make your life awesome, friends.